Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here to talk about ongoing concerns with European censorship, British censorship, and its effect on American speech or broader free speech principles that hurt certainly citizens, but American companies, both domestically and abroad. What I'm hearing today, at least from the witnesses, is rather alarming. This Orwellian in nature approach that Europe has taken, the hostility to free speech, to satire, to maybe speech that you disagree with. And I want to talk about that as it pertains to the UK, the EU, and certainly the US. Mr. Price, Prime Minister Starmer said that the UK does not have a free speech problem. Do you agree with that statement?
No, I do not.
In what ways do you disagree with the Prime Minister?
We have seen numerous prosecutions in the United Kingdom for totally non-violent speech. We have clients, my own organisation is acting for, who have been arrested for silently praying, for offering consensual conversations, for preaching about the gospel. And I can go on. There are numerous and numerous examples.
12,183 prosecutions, I think, is at least what I've read. Does that sound about accurate to you?
That sounds accurate.
Which is a 50% increase from pre-pandemic levels. What does that tell you about maybe the focus of the British government as it pertains to speech right now?
Sadly, it shows that the United Kingdom, just like the rest of Europe, has entered a spiral of censorship, and it's getting worse. And it's gotten to the point where even our oldest and closest ally, the United States, has had to intervene and point that out. And as I said on numerous occasions, I'm extremely grateful to all of you for doing that. But the problem, frankly, is being now compounded and set in stone by things like the DSA from the European Union and the Online Safety Act in the United Kingdom.
Well, let's talk about the Online Safety Act for a second. I mean, I think it maybe is intended to protect children, and I think everyone lauds that. Mr. Farage talked about that nobody, right or left, wants their child exposed to bad content online. But it's been talked about, and you've seen this in your practice, used as a weapon to target speech that maybe the government finds uncomfortable or disagrees with. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've seen, for example, Section 62, which is designed to protect children, being used to censor videos of protests near asylum centres. And so once you reach a point where content is restricted on the basis that it is political, we're moving well out of any kind of zone of protecting children into essentially censorship.
Right, so at least in the case of the comedian, the Irish comedian that was recently arrested, you know, I was not aware of his content before and looked at it, and it seemed to be satirical in nature or maybe hyperbolic and not necessarily to be treated literally. Is that your interpretation of that too?
Yes, in fact, I told Graham Linehan when I was growing up I wasn't allowed to watch his comedy on TV. Father Ted was the show that he's probably most famous for. So what I would say is he's an excellent satirist, and he's in the long tradition of Irish satire, starting with Jonathan Swift, really, and all the way up to today.
Isn't that part of like British society, though? Is like satire is embedded in the culture? Like you've embraced this for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah, I would just add Irish and British.
Irish and British, excuse me.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah, and it's the concept. Really, I think we haven't seen political extremism in the British Isles in the way that we did in Europe, because we have a healthy way of kind of laughing at and poking fun at our leadership. And I think whether it's cartoons about the king in the 1800s all the way up to Father Ted and Graham Linehan's work today, that's a great tradition.
Isn't there growing frustration with the Irish people, the British people, maybe broader European cultures, that the government is more focused on speech than it is, say, the migrant crimes that are happening right under their noses? I mean, that seems to be, from my view across the pond, that particularly the British people, they're fed up with the non-enforcement of immigration laws at the expense, or maybe because, in large part, they're focused on what people are saying online. Do you share that?
I completely agree with that, and this is the discussion I had with Representative Raskin in London. This is about shutting down growing discontent in Europe with the decisions that our political elites have made. And we've reached a crisis point where it's no longer possible to conceal the level of public anger. And I think these censorship maneuvers are an act of desperation, and they won't work.
Thank you for that. And radically shifting to Mr. Reid for a second, and a different approach. In the app industry, does the DMA incentivize Chinese copycat companies to flood the market? And if so, how does that impact American companies in European markets? And what are the associated data privacy implications of that?
You may finish.
Being aware of the time, yes. The problem is Article 6, Section 4.
You have unlimited time. Pay no attention to the chairman.
I always pay attention to the chair and the ranking member. The easy idea is Article 6, Section 4, Article 6, Section 7, and even 10. Part of the problem is they basically have must-carry provisions. And what that does is open the door. Part of what small businesses have benefited the most from the existence of these platforms, again, as I said, this isn't a love affair, it's a business relationship. They opened the door to customers, and the customers trust what they're buying on the platform. Article 6, Section 4, and Section 7 really say they must put on anyone's product. And of course, the most classic example of that, the first mover under the new DMA was Pornhub, which Apple had decided they didn't want porn apps on their app store. And the first one out of the gate to say, incorrectly, they claimed it was an Apple-approved app, which once again leads to confusion and breaks down trust. That was out of the gate the first app. And so from my members' perspective, their concern is, hey, I want to be sold at the store that people feel comfortable buying at. And the more you degrade the quality of experience and the more you degrade or allow that to be broader, we run into a problem. Thank you. I'm sorry for the time.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Apparently the whereabouts of our missing witness have been ascertained. He's appearing on GB News, which I guess is the network he works for outside of the Rayburn building. I just wonder if it would be consistent with the rules and the practice of our committee for us to send someone to invite him to come back, because I think we have 5 or 6 members who haven't questioned yet. Would that be all right if we sent someone to go alert him that there's still members waiting?
At a House Judiciary Committee hearing earlier this month, Representative Russell Fry, RSC, raised concerns over censorship in Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom, and its growing impact on American free speech and business interests. Fry described the approach as Orwellian, pointing to restrictions on satire, religious expression, and speech that governments find uncomfortable. One witness rejected the claim by Prime Minister Keir Starmer that the UK does not have a free speech problem, citing thousands of prosecutions for non-violent expression. Cases have included arrests for silent prayer, consensual conversations, and gospel preaching. Records show a 50% increase in prosecutions compared with pre-pandemic levels, a trend witnesses say highlights the government's heightened focus on speech suppression. Attention turned to the UK's Online Safety Act, which was initially introduced to protect children from harmful content. Critics argued that the law has gone far beyond its stated purpose, being used to censor political speech such as protest videos near asylum centers. They warned that this shift from protecting children to policing political expression sets a dangerous precedent. The hearing also examined the targeting of satire, long considered a staple of Irish and British culture. The arrest of comedian Graham Linehan was raised as an example of authorities cracking down on content that has historically been treated as legitimate social commentary. Witnesses emphasized that satire has played a central role in holding leaders accountable for centuries, from political cartoons to modern television shows. Fry pressed further on whether governments were more focused on online speech than pressing issues such as migrant crime, noting the growing frustration among citizens. Witnesses agreed, calling the censorship an act of desperation by political elites to silence rising public discontent. The discussion later shifted to the European Union's Digital Markets Act, with concerns that its must-carry provisions could allow questionable or harmful apps to flood major platforms. Pornhub was cited as one of the first companies to attempt to exploit these rules, creating confusion and eroding consumer trust. Witnesses warned that such requirements risk undermining American companies operating in European markets while benefiting foreign competitors. The hearing concluded with an unusual moment when a missing witness was discovered to be appearing live on a news broadcast instead of testifying before the committee, prompting a parliamentary inquiry about recalling him for questioning.